Alright, welcome back to another fantastic episode of, actually this is different. We're going over books. I have a lot of books, there's a lot of books. A lot of other prepper YouTubers have been talking about books or doing book reviews lately. I find massive issues with their book collections, and I'm going to talk about that. But first I'm going to go over mine. Maps. Everybody talks about maps. I don't know how many of you have maps of Mexico, but this is an authentic Mexico map. You know, for a whopping 150 pesos. I used to have to do logistics in Mexico and having real maps and then having people from Mexico actually detailing like the good and bad areas is really useful. Okay. Moving on. Next, we'll talk about just like the official military stuff. The military has tons of good manuals on everything, and a lot of them are a nasty, horrible color. This is the best nuclear, biological, and chemical survival manual on the planet, which is why every single YouTube prepper's got one of these, and it's also why it's been, I think, in the top 100 forever. This is the military operations on urbanized terrain from the Marine Corps. This is one of the best military books there is. It has how to clear urbanized terrain, how to set up ambush, counter ambush. Pretty much every prepper book on urban terrain comes from this book. This is the soldier manual and trainer's guide. This is a chonky boy. This has everything from assembling and disassembling machine guns, but you'll notice, which I know you won't need that, but this also has the sequences of fire, and every other newbie and non-newbie thing you would ever need to know about fighting positions and the whole 9 yards. I'm not suggesting that you read this whole thing, but you should have a copy of it. Ugh. This is individual combat techniques. I know a lot of this stuff is silly by today's standards, meaning like the likelihood that you'll ever use this, you know, is very low. Because, yeah, I don't know. But I still think it is good to have. For example, if you run into a bunch of military equipment, which is going to be very likely in shit is a fan situation, and you don't know what to do with it. Combat Lifesaver. This is one of the best medical courses on the planet, period. I don't even care. And a lot of the medical books that you're going to be reading are going to be based off of this book, whether it's wilderness survival or whatever. Okay, that's the end of the military stuff for now. If you can pick up a copy of the Siri training book, that's really good too. Anyway, let's go into self-help. Let's go into self-help books. This is one of my favorites. It's called It's Okay That You're Not Okay. Handling grief is insanely complex and complicated, and it's not the same with two people twice. Most of these self-proclaimed douchebags that write these books have no idea how to actually handle grief. This is one of the better ones. The only real way is to go through like 9 months of grief counseling training. But nobody's got time for that. And then they expect you to support them for years and years. Check out a copy of this book. This is the Common Sense Book of Complete Cat Care. This has like pretty much everything you'd never ever need about every single tiny thing that can go on with cats. And including the first aid the first aid stuff. If you have a dog, if you're into rabbits, I know I have a rabbit outside and it's crazy. You're going to need some kind of care book. All right, moving on. The meat and potatoes of this whole thing, the real reason why I wanted to do this video, the real reason I was getting so sick and tired of everybody else's videos, is they have all their trendy, hippity-hoppity, dippity-doppity top 100 books, which some of these have been in the top 100. This one still is in the top 100. This is a great companion piece if you don't have time to read the whole entire nuclear biological manual. This is from David Kobler, if that name sounds familiar. That's Southern Prepper 1. J.D. Dutra, you're going to be seeing his name quite a bit. This is a newbie prepper book about building teams. This is really, really good. It doesn't cover it all, but it covers a lot of it. This is the closest I have found to a team building book. It doesn't cover all of it, but it covers a lot. Someday I'm going to write my own if anybody cares. This is the SHTF Tactical Drone Manual by Don Schiff. You hear me talk about this a lot. This is a truncated version of his bigger book about Poor Man's Air Force. If you own a drone, if you're even thinking about owning a drone, you need to get a copy of this book. It is freaking amazing. This is part of the Tactical Wisdom series. And he has a whole series of these. I think there's 5. One of them's a medical book. This is more of the mindset of prepping and defending. This whole series is freaking amazing. Get it. Planning for an Uncertain Future. This is part of the Spikes Guide series. Introduction to Prepping. This is the best newbie prepper book, besides mine, that I've ever written. And he wrote his exactly the same way I wrote mine. This guy does blogs, and he wrote so many blogs, he finally compiled them all. Amazing book. This is Rural and Suburban Home Defense by Don Schiff. This is pretty much almost anything you need to know about riots and protests and defending your subdivision. And then this is more likely what you're going to encounter in a rural area. These books are amazing. Let's get into radio stuff, because a lot of people, I'm not going to learn how to use my radio, and just when the shit hits the fan, I'm just going to use it because it's an emergency. If you don't have a copy or two of this, I get asked these questions about 1 billion times. I have had this thing next to my desk ever since the day I got my ham license, because this right here and this right here, I answer questions about those two things about 1 billion times. People will literally call me and tell me. And it was funny, I was watching, I think, one of Father Abraham's things. He's another YouTuber and he makes stuff, and he has started just writing these right on people's radios, which I think is freaking hilarious. A lot of people, screw the ham people, I'm gonna program my own radio when the shit hits the fan. No, you're not, because if you don't have the frequencies and you don't have a moderately modern copy of the repeater directory, you're not programming anything. The ham people aren't going to tell you what the repeaters are. And you're not going to figure it out on your own, trust me. This is the only Baofeng radio book you should be buying. There are so many ripoffs of this. This is the original. All those other people should be in jail in Minecraft. Get this one. Do not get the other ones They are all scams. And I was watching the other big YouTubers. They have the wrong copies because they're not paying attention, because they're not really in this. A lot of them are grifters in a lot of ways. This is the one you want. They also wrote another one called NC Scout, aka Brush Beater. Also wrote The Guide to Signal Intelligence, which covers radios and drones. Now let's talk about some history stuff. This is the history of the Crusades, the First Crusade. Highly recommended. If you can get a copy, I think having some historical books is a good idea, and this is one of the better ones. Mad Dog Sunday. I haven't picked up a lot of Stoker's stuff. He's the guy that does Stokermatic, the YouTube channel Stokermatic. I need to pick up more of his stuff. These are compiled... stay in your bubble. These are like compiled, they're not really blog posts. I think they're like motivational notes from Mad Dog. And it goes into who Mad Dog is. This book is I can't even tell you how good that book is. Okay, so let's go into, I don't know. So these are kind of two different copies of Dante's Inferno. This is all three. I don't know if you knew there's actually three: Inferno, Purgatory, and Paradise. We're going to be going through Hell sooner or later. I suggest grabbing a copy and reading it. Let's go over some teeny tiny small stuff. There's these little hip pocket books. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. I suggest picking them up and reading them. This is made by Southern Prepper One and JD Dutra, just like I was talking about earlier. They wrote some of the other books. Before they did Are You Ready for WROL, they did Conflicted, and I have that whole set too, but I'm not going to confuse the shit out of everybody because those are out of print. These are a lot, and this is a very affordable set. These are all scenarios, so some of you out there, I know who you are, love talking about scenarios. Those are scenarios. We'll talk about some kind of fictional stuff really quick. Same thing, JD Dutra, he's the guy that wrote Conflicted, helped with WROL, and works with Southern Prepper One. This book is one of the most gritty, realistic, shit it's the fan books I've ever read in my life. And I regret not talking to him years ago about it before he got busy. This is a fictional book about the New York collapse, and it's written like a real book with cliff notes. And it's fictional, but a lot of the stuff in The Division, Tom Clancy's The Division, which is what this is based off of, a lot of the stuff in the Division universe has already happened. And I know several of you play the Division. If you've never picked up a copy of this, it's really good. Talks about dead drops and identification. I don't know. You name it. It's a good book. All right, second to last but not least. I know this is... All right, here we go. Magazines. So magazines are kind of hard to come by now. Off Grid, as far as I know, is like the last one in the game. They cover things from road rage to anarchy to riot response. They have them about active shooter, the whole 9 yards. I used to carry this one in my backpack every time I had to go in the office just to make me feel better, because it has all the tips of surviving shit hits the fan. I don't know. I suggest getting a subscription to this and then shop around and get it on sale. You can get these really affordable. Don't pay the newsstand prices unless you're bored. get a subscription to this. Of course, they usually come with a cover on them so people can't see that you're buying prepper books. I have 2 totes full of these. There used to be another one called Survivor's Edge that was amazing, and they just kind of couldn't make it. So Off-Grid's kind of the last one. Grab Off-Grid. They're all bangers. They have scenarios in them. They have gear in them. And then what you do is you get Post-it notes and you tab every single part of these because they become amazing reference material. Okay, last but not least, if you want kind of your standard cookie cutter stuff, you know, there's the SAS manual, which everybody has. This is Les Stroud's Survive. I'm sure he didn't write this. He probably had some consultants and stuff write it, and he slapped his name on it. But if you can find this on sale, it's actually pretty good. A lot of people shit on it. I read it. I liked it. It doesn't have anything actually to do with Les Stroud. It's got his photographs in it. But it's written from the point of if you're just out there bushcrafting, I like it. How to survive off the grid. This is the part of the Outdoor Life series, which isn't too bad. But you'll start to notice something. You'll start to notice these are like really, really overproduced. But it still has, you know, how to make moonshine, you know, how to build a still. Some of these have way more pictures in them. And if you're a picture person, or if it just makes you feel better to look at colorful pictures when you're dying, this is a good one. To a lesser extent, the Pacific Northwest Disaster Guide. This is local. I don't know if they made these for anywhere else because it was printed and everything by publishers here in the Pacific Northwest. But same thing. It's got lots of pictures and little comics. But my point to these is like a lot of this stuff is like kind of topical. Unless you're actually actively doing it and trying to follow these, then you will start to see the flaws. So, you know, last but not least, my book, Newbie Prepper book. And that's the thing. A lot of these, they say they're for new people, but you're not gonna actually survive using most of these. Maybe if you're hiding in a closet as the fan goes on. But like, you know, the active shooter ones, like a lot of this stuff, you're gonna be freezing to death. It's not the grid's gonna go down and you're gonna pick up your book. You got to read this stuff beforehand. Actually try it. Okay? And I know I should have some copies of the Bible and the New Testament and the Old Testament and King James and stuff, but I feel like everybody kind of has their own version of the Bible that they grab, and so I didn't want to be a douchebag about that. But I do think picking up a copy of Dante's Inferno is important. I think if you haven't read it, it's part of being prepared, in my opinion. So anyway, I think that's it. It really, if I had to tell you to pick up any right now, if you can find it, grab a copy of Mad Dog Sunday. If you can find it, grab a real copy of The Guerrilla's Guide to the Baofeng Radio by NC Scout. If you live in the city, or if you live in a subdivision, pick up Suburban Defense. Unless you have been in riots and had thousands or hundreds of people marching down your street. Don't assume to know what's in here. If you're in a rural area, this one's really good, but I'd say you could wait. If you're a newbie or you have a lot of newbies to deal with, grab a copy of that. If you're going to be dealing with drones, grab a copy of this. And if you're kind of new to setting groups up, grab a copy of that. And if you're an absolute spaz worried about getting nuked and surviving, grab a copy of that. A lot of people are like, well, if we're going to get nuked, I'm not worried about it. The thing is, the likelihood of you being on ground zero and or which direction the wind is going to go is actually not that high. There are several windows of opportunities to survive nukes and survive the fallout. So, and if you don't have time to read that one, grab this one. All right, talk to y'all later, bye.